The alarm cut through the classroom before I even finished sitting down, and every non-human head in the room turned toward the door at once, ready to run. I did not move. I had learned, after 6 months on this station, that half the alarms here meant nothing at all. "Stand down," came the voice over the speaker, flat and tired. "Drill only. Repeat. Drill only." The tension in the room did not leave. It just changed shape. 80-something students from a dozen different worlds settled back into their seats, but their bodies stayed tight, coiled, like they expected the real thing to follow the fake one. I was the only human in the room, and I was the only one who leaned back in my chair like nothing had happened at all. Instructor Wren stood at the front, arms folded, watching me with the same expression he always wore when I did not react the way he expected. Confusion mixed with something close to suspicion. "You did not even look at the door," he said. "Didn't need to," I said. "If it was real, running wouldn't help anyway. Might as well save the energy." A few students laughed, quiet and nervous. Wren did not laugh. He turned back to the front console and pulled up a new file, the same way he did every week when he wanted to remind the class why humans were still considered unknown and unpredictable, even after all this time trading and talking and sharing space with the rest of the galaxy. "Today," he said, "we return to predator classification, species from low-contact worlds, vocal recordings only, gathered by drones, never confirmed by direct contact. This is advanced material. I expect focus." The lights dimmed. A low hum filled the room, the kind that made the small hairs on my arms stand up, even though I already had a feeling about where this was going. The first sound was sharp and layered, like metal scraping against metal underwater. A student beside me, a gesh with pale blue skin and too many joints in her fingers, flinched hard enough to knock her stylus off the desk. "That," Wren said, "belongs to an organism from a moon, in a system we have not yet approached for contact. Classification, apex predator, high confidence." Nobody argued. Nobody ever argued with Wren. The second sound played, a rolling growl, deep and slow, followed by 3 short clicks. The room went very still. "Also apex," Wren said. "Confirmed kill count on the drone that recorded it." 4 minutes of vocalization before the feed cut out entirely. I sat with my arms crossed, waiting, because I already knew what was coming next. I had heard the file list before class, during a maintenance check with one of the station's data techs, a gesh named Corin, who liked to talk more than he liked to work. He had shown me the cue as a joke, not realizing what he was actually showing me. The third sound started, and I could not stop the grin from spreading across my face. It was a low, rolling purr, rough at the edges, rising into a small chirp near the end. I knew that sound. I had heard that exact sound roughly 4,000 times in my life, usually right before feeding time, usually followed by a small orange animal knocking something off a shelf out of pure boredom. "Human," Wren said, catching my expression immediately. "You find this amusing?" "A little," I admitted. "This organism," he said, tapping the console, "was recorded by a gesh survey drone before the drone was destroyed. Classification, apex predator, unconfirmed, high threat." "That's not an apex predator," I said. "That's a house pet." The room did the thing it always did when I said something that did not fit their picture of the universe. Heads tilted, antennae twitched. A dozen different species processed the sentence in a dozen different ways, and none of them landed anywhere close to understanding. "Explain," Wren said, folding his arms tighter. "That sound is called a purr," I said. "It's what a certain kind of animal makes when it's relaxed, or happy, or sometimes when it's hurt, and trying to heal itself faster. My neighbor back home had one just like it. Orange fur, round face, weighs about as much as a bag of grain. Sleeps 18 hours a day. The other 6 hours, it either eats or causes property damage for fun." "The drone that recorded this sound did not survive contact," Wren said, his voice flat, like he was daring me to keep going. "What happened to the drone exactly?" I asked. "Not the sound. The drone. What actually happened to it?" Wren checked the file. His mandibles moved in a way I had learned meant he did not like where this was going. "Survey data indicates the drone's stabilizer trailed a signal cable during low-altitude scanning. Sensors recorded rapid pursuit, followed by destruction of the cable assembly and loss of drone function. "There it is," I said, laughing now, unable to help it. "It saw a string hanging off the drone, and it went for it. That's not a hunt, that's a toy." The drone probably crashed because the cat, that's what we call them, pulled the cable hard enough to knock the whole thing off balance. This is not a predator flex. This is an animal having the best 5 minutes of its entire day. Silence again, but different this time, heavier. "You are telling this class," Ren said slowly, "that a sound in our archive, classified for 6 years as an unconfirmed apex threat, belongs to an animal your species keeps inside its homes." "Yes," I said. "Voluntarily. We pay money for them. We build little houses just for them to sleep in. Some people even dress them up in tiny outfits, which the cat usually hates, but we do it anyway because it's funny." Somewhere in the back of the room, a student made a sound I did not have a translation for, but I was fairly sure it meant something close to what is wrong with these people. Ren pulled up the 4th file with visibly less confidence than before. "This next recording," he said, "is classified extreme range, apex vocalization, organism of significant mass." The sound played, a slow, rolling boom, deep enough that I felt it in my chest more than heard it in my ears. It rose and fell in a steady rhythm, almost gentle, almost like breathing. I grinned again. "Same animal," I said. "Bigger version. Still just means it's happy." Ren did not respond to that one at all. He simply closed the file, dimmed the lights back up, and moved on to the next section of the lesson without another word about predators. I could tell it bothered him, the idea that his careful archive of galactic threats had a hole in it shaped exactly like my species' idea of a nap buddy. After class, 3 students followed me into the hallway, walking with the stiff, careful steps of people approaching something they had just been told might be dangerous, even though nothing about my walk down the hallway looked dangerous at all. "Human," the lead one said, a tall gesh named Ilya, with markings down both arms. "This animal, you keep it in your home, unrestrained. Usually asleep on my chest, actually," I said. "And it does not attack you. It bites sometimes, if I stop scratching its ears too soon. That's about as bad as it gets." Ilya looked at the 2 students behind her, and the 3 of them had a short, quiet conversation, in a dialect I did not understand, though I caught the tone well enough. Somewhere between confused and impressed. "Your species," Ilya said finally, turning back to me, "is either the bravest in known space, or the least aware of danger that has ever existed." "Bit of both," I said. "Ask me about honey badgers sometime. Those we're a little more careful with." I thought that was the end of it. A funny story to tell later. A small win for humanity's reputation. Nothing more. I was wrong. 3 days later, the station's alarm went off again, and this time, it was not a drill. I was in the mess hall when the lights switched from soft white to deep red, and the calm voice from the ceiling was replaced by something sharper, faster, less rehearsed. "All personnel, secure positions. Unidentified vessel approaching outer perimeter. This is not a drill." The room emptied fast. I moved with it, following the flow toward the nearest secure bay, my heart picking up speed even though my legs stayed steady out of pure habit. I had drilled this route more times than I could count. Corin caught up to me in the corridor, breathing hard, his pale skin gone a shade lighter than usual, which I had learned meant he was scared. "Ship's not responding to any hail," he said. "No transponder, no pattern we recognize. Command's calling it a possible Predator-class vessel." "Just a turn you its time." "Predator-class?" I repeated. "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning it's not built like anything we trade with," he said. "Meaning it might be hunting." We reached the observation deck just as the ship came into view on the main display, a long, dark shape moving without lights, without any of the usual signals ships use to say they came in peace. It moved slow, deliberate, circling the outer ring of the station like it was studying it. Ren was already there, standing at the console, his arms no longer folded, his whole posture different now, less certain, more afraid. "It has not responded to any hail," he said, without turning around. "Command believes it may be scouting for a larger group. We have never encountered a vessel with this profile before." "What does the profile look like?" I asked, moving closer to the display. He pulled up the data. Long, low shape, minimal heat signature, moving with a strange, uneven rhythm, speeding up and slowing down in a pattern that did not match any known engine type. I stared at it for a long moment, something tugging at the back of my mind, a memory I could not quite place yet. "Play the audio again," I said. "Whatever it's broadcasting, play it." Ren hesitated, then pulled up the feed. A low, rolling sound filled the room, rough at the edges, rising and falling in an uneven rhythm. My stomach dropped, and then, a second later, it did something closer to the opposite. Relief, mixed with disbelief, mixed with the kind of laugh you let out when you cannot quite believe what you are looking at. "That's not a predator," I said. "That's a distress call." "Explain," Ren said, sharper this time. No patience left for guessing games. "That rhythm," I said, pointing at the display. "Slow, then fast, then slow again. That's not a hunting pattern. That's an animal in pain trying to move steady and failing. I've heard that exact rhythm before, back home, when a stray dog got hit by a car near my house and tried to drag itself off the road." "This is a ship," Ren said, "not an animal." "I know it's a ship," I said. "But whoever built the sound file used a template, some kind of old-world recording spliced into the ship's broadcast, maybe as a warning signal, maybe as something else. I don't know why. But that pattern is not aggression, it's suffering. Whatever's inside that ship, it's hurt, not hunting." The room went quiet, except for the low hum of the ship's uneven broadcast, still rolling out across the display. "If you are wrong," Ren said, "we lose the station." "If I'm right, and we fire first," I said, "we lose whatever's left of that crew, and we start a fight we didn't need to start." Nobody moved for a long, tight moment. Then Ren turned to the officer beside him, a gesh named Talia, with sharp eyes and a steady voice, and gave a short nod. "Hold fire," Talia said into her comm. "Repeat, hold fire. Attempt contact on all channels." We waited. The ship kept its slow, uneven circle around the station, broadcasting that same rolling sound over and over, and every second it did, I felt more certain, not less. A response finally came through, garbled at first, then clearing into something close to readable. A voice, weak, speaking in a dialect the station's translator struggled to keep up with. "Help. Engine failure. Crew injured. Please. Help." The room let out a breath all at once, like it had been holding it the whole time without realizing. Ren looked at me, his expression somewhere between embarrassment and something close to respect. "You knew," he said, "from a sound." "I guessed," I said, same as before. "Sometimes the scary sound just means something's in trouble, not something's dangerous. You just have to know what you're listening to." The next few hours moved fast. A rescue team went out to bring the ship in, the crew treated for injuries from a fuel leak that had crippled their engine days earlier, stranded and drifting with barely enough power to keep the distress signal running. If we had fired first, the way half the station wanted to before I said anything, none of them would have made it. Ilya found me again later that night, in the same hallway as before, the same careful steps, though this time there was no fear in them at all.
"You did it again," she said.
"Did what?" "Made the scary thing into something small," she said. "Something we understood. You have a talent for that." "I just grew up around animals that sound worse than they are," I said. "Guess that turned out to matter more than I thought." She studied me for a moment, then did something I had not seen her do before. She smiled, a real one, not the polite kind she usually gave humans out of caution. "Maybe your species is not the least aware of danger," she said. "Maybe you are just better at telling the difference between danger and noise." I thought about that for a long time after she left, about the drone that thought it filmed a predator and instead filmed a cat playing with a string, about the ship that sounded like a monster and turned out to be a family bleeding out in the dark, calling for help the only way it had left. Sometimes the loudest, scariest sound in the room is not a threat at all. Sometimes it is just something small, or something hurting, doing the only thing it knows how to do to be heard. I stayed on that station 2 more years after that night, Ren stopped pulling up unconfirmed predator files during class after a while, not because he stopped believing in danger, but because he started asking me first, before he taught the lesson, just in case the scary sound in his archive turned out to be something softer than anyone expected. And every time a new student flinched at a recording that turned out to be nothing more than a purring cat or a whimpering dog or a tired engine crying out for help, I thought about how strange it was that out of every species we had met so far, it was my own, loud and messy and covered in scars from animals we chose to love anyway, that turned out to know the difference best. Not because we were fearless, because we had spent our whole history learning exactly what fear should sound like, and exactly what it should not.